Hello and welcome to Maths with El Profe Los. Let's look at an exam style question dealing with elementary number theory and divisibility. So let's say we want to prove that 7 divides 2,222 raised to the 5,555 plus 5,555 raised to the 2,222. All right, how could we do this, right? How could we do this? Okay, well, because this is divisibility, we really just need to show that this is true, right? It's not as much of a proof as more a show that. So let's go through the math. Okay, so a good place to start is to determine, right, what 2,222 is equivalent to mod 7, and it's also useful to determine what does 5,555 equivalent to mod 7. Right? So in other words, if we were to divide, right, what would we have? Okay, as a remainder. Now, of course, we could go through and do that work without a calculator, but we'll simplify things here and say, well, what's 2,222 divided by 7? Okay, there is that piece. And if we don't recognize that as a remainder, all right, let's subtract 317 and multiply by 7, which tells us we have a remainder of 3. All right, so that's a congruence for us. And with 5,500 divided by 7, we get to this. Subtract the 793, multiply that decimal by 7, and we have that. Okay, so like I said, we could have done this using long division and seen what the remainder was and said, hey, 7 goes into 2,222, right, and be able to say, okay, well, it goes into this 3 times, and that's going to be 21, and subtract, and that's going to be 12, so it goes into that once, and that's going to be 7, and subtract, and that's going to be 52, so it goes into there 6 times, and that's going to be, let's see here, not 6 times, excuse me, but 7, right, and that's going to be 49, right, and then we're going to have a remainder of 3, and so we could obviously go through and do that work, which might take us just a touch longer depending. Okay, so we have this information, okay? So what does that tell us? What does that tell us? Well, it doesn't tell us too much yet. But what it does say is that 2,222 to the 5,555 plus 5,555 to the 2,222 is equivalent to 3 to the 5,555 plus 4 to the 2,222 mod 7, right? Because 2,222 is to 3 mod 7 and 5,555 is to 4 mod 7. Okay. Well, now what we might do here is I'm going to look to see, well, what is 3 to the 5th equivalent to mod 7, because I know that 5 times 1,111 is going to get me this, and I'm also going to want to say, well, what is 4 squared equivalent to mod 7? Okay, and 4 squared might be easier for most people because 4 squared is 16, and so that's clearly going to be 2 mod 7. And 3 to the 5th, right? Well, if you're not sure on 3 to the 5th, we know it's going to be 81 times 3, right? Because we go in there, that's 243, right? Because 81 times 3 would be the same. So that's 243. On division by 7, we have that as a decimal. If we focus just on the decimal, multiply by 7, that gives us a remainder of 5. So now we have that. Okay, so what does that tell us? That tells us that 3,555 plus 4 raised to the 2,222 is equivalent to 5 raised to the 1,111 plus 2 raised to the 1,111 mod 7. Okay, now at this point, some people might be like, okay, well, where do I go next? And, try and use the similar approach and say, okay, well, what does 5 to some power equal to with mod 7? But if we're thinking carefully, let's be clever about this. What do we know about 2? We know that 2 is equivalent to negative 5 mod 7, because if I subtract 7 from 2, I get negative 5. Right? So 2 is equivalent to negative 5 mod 7. So that means for us that 5,111 plus 2,111 is equivalent to 5,111 minus, plus negative 2, negative 5, let's do it properly, plus negative 5 to the 1,111, which we know negative raised to an odd power is going to be negative. So this is going to be equivalent to 0 mod 7, which therefore implies that 7 will in fact divide 2,222 to the 5,555 plus 5,555 raised to the 2,222. Right? And quod erat demonstrandum. Okay, so a little bit on divisibility, playing around with the numbers. Key idea here is to, kind of work through things to where you think you might get to, and when you say, hey, maybe I'm stuck, try and think about things in a slightly different way. Okay, so this has been Maths with El Profe Lo. As always, reach out if you have questions.